I'm going to start. All right. Just 1 second. We'll be going live. And I'm just going to turn it right on over to Nick. So Nick.
Okay. If you guys remember me, guys and ladies remember from a few months ago, I'm Nick Lowe with McAdams, and our team has been working on your Parks and Recreation Master Plan, as well as a park-specific master plan for the Jamestown Park. And we've got two of my associates with me, Laura Stroud, who's actually been working on the comprehensive master plan with me, and Morgan Landers, who's been working on the actual drawing for the park-specific master plan. So without further ado, I guess I'll move into things. You know, we started looking into the park, which is just north of the golf course. And what really drove us for our program for this park, remember we did the scientifically valid survey, and residents told us, you know, what their top items would be if they could add some different activities to the park system. And these plans you're about to see, we have two concepts we're going to run through for, you know, what we could do to improve Jamestown Park. And they were really focused on some of the top 10 items, which some of them included greenways and trails, outdoor exercise. Splash pad did actually come in as one of the top ones. So you'll kind of see some different things coming through here, and dog park did come in the top 10 as well. You'll kind of see some things of how we're going to arrange the space and kind of two different takes on how we can do this, but it really turned into, let me go ahead and share my screen, make sure everybody can see it. Matthew, can you enable for me to share the screen?
Yep, I'm working on that.
Okay.
Let's see.
And about halfway through this, you'll probably get a request from Morgan to be able to take control so she can kind of roll through a concept as well.
There you go.
Can everybody see that and see my little hand?
Yep.
Okay, good. So this is the existing Jamestown Park to kind of orient you. Here's East Fork Road. Golf course is to the south. Maintenance is to the north. Hole 1 is to the west. And then the greenway is right here in the corner to the east. So some of the things we kind of took into account, we have a really good existing parking areas for what's going on. Also, there's some good open space, and kind of next to the road here's is fenced, as well as some things to note when we start going through the plans is we have some pretty generous topography here where it's eroding and become a maintenance problem, as Scott's told us. We have the existing ball fields, existing parking, basketball and volleyball, playground, and then we have the shelter complex with restrooms and septic fields. So, you know, kind of taking into account what some of these natural features were, what's happening next to the park, and what some availability for sewer is really what drove a lot of the design. And from talks with Matthew and Scott, if we wanted to do a splash pad or some type of new restrooms, our best availability for sewer is in this bottom left-hand corner of the site. So the southwestern part of the site, if we wanted to connect and do something like that. So you'll see in both of our compositions that our splash pad's located here just for the sole fact that that has to be with sewer if we decide to do a splash pad. Are there any kind of questions from that first overview, kind of where our program came from and what we're trying, you know, kind of our site overview?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm going to hand the reins over to Morgan to go over our first concept.
Can I get control of the mouse, please? That's possible.
Morgan, you should have ability to share your screen. You got it?
I,
It's at the bottom of your screen. There'll be a pop-up bar and you'll see a green button that says share screen.
Oh, she was going to use the screen I had popped up
Right,
with her
yeah.
mouse.
Gotcha. And just FYI, I have pretty much everybody muted. So if you want to speak, just unmute yourself before you speak.
okay. Nick, is it possible for me to get control of the mouse while using your screen, or will I need to pull up the PDF?
Did you already ask to request for?
It's not an option.
It's not an option.
No.
Yeah, I guess you can ask.
Try now, Morgan.
I don't have it, sorry.
Well, if it's okay, I can, while you're talking, if you tell me where
Yeah.
you start, I can move the hand. That's okay.
And just kind of go, we can start on the left side and go
Okay.
clockwise or whatever. So, right, we've got your hand right there, right in the middle. I'm showing some grass terraces that are coming off of the existing topography. So my idea for them is that they're not very tall up to each different level, but it's just kind of some different levels of flat grassy areas to have a picnic, read a book, lay out, what have you. And then moving around up towards the top, I'm showing a fitness program pavilion that can be a pretty multi-use space. It can have some exercise equipment in there, just open space for fitness classes or even non-fitness related classes, just any kind of social gathering. And behind that, some artificial turf, like for some yoga or some more fitness space right there. Moving over to the right is kind of a standalone area in the park. It's a more formal garden seating area. It's kind of surrounded by that natural alcove with the topography, so it's a bit of a secluded, quieter space in the park. Straight down from there, showing a picnic pavilion with space for just kind of party games right there with some cornhole and bocce and just different hangout spaces right there, right next to the lawn. So it's pretty family friendly space in general. Moving down, this is the splash pad area that I'm proposing, which will be right there next to renovated restrooms and a pump house with the sewer connections right there. Yep, which backs up on the other side to another little play area with some landscape berms with sod and just kind of natural boulders and rocks to play on. So the seating area in the middle kind of is reversible for the splash pad and the play area. And all around on the topography, the slope, I've got erosion control plantings showing there. Off of the existing parking, I'm showing an expanded pervious parking area. The extra space can be used for just more numbers in the park of more visitors at once, or extra space kind of for a farmer's market or a small festival kind of thing right in there. Right next to where you've got your hand, that's the new playground area that I'm proposing. It'll be shifting over a little bit, but I've got restrooms shown right beside there too, just ease of access with kids. And then right below that is the naturally existed wooded area. And kind of a cool concept I was trying to show in there is some natural play features that could use what's already in the area just for some different kinds of play equipment for kids. So there's some example pictures down in the rest of the PDF, but just kind of like tree trunks and rocks and just natural features that kids can really get creative and play with. The existing parking right there, right above it is a septic field. So I'm showing just kind of a low use, just kind of dress it up and have a little seating area. It's an intersection with sidewalks right there. So it's a bit of a focal point. So just make it some different kind of pavers and just make it a little prettier right there, which will bring you over to the dog park on the east side. That's separated large and small, and showing a shelter in the middle just because I'm a dog owner. I've taken my dog to dog parks and they usually don't have a good place for the people to sit down and hang out while the dogs are playing. So it's pretty important to make sure you actually want to bring your dog there. Have some good places for the people too in there. And moving up towards the top, I've got a community garden shown. That was one of the top desires from the survey. And it's got some different kind of spaces in there with a little orchard and some raised beds. Just kind of fit into that space right there with the full sun. And that brings you around to the beginning, I think. So, are there any questions?
Yeah, this is Jared with Jamestown Youth League, guys. Hope everybody's doing well today. Obviously, my concern is I see no baseball fields no longer on here. Are the plans to take baseball fields away? Are they gone now forever?
I'll let Matthew answer that question.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in there, and I'll turn our video back on. Hang on just 1 second. So as part of the pending development of the Johnson property, there have been discussions about some acreage being set aside very specifically for the use for the town for recreation purposes. Our intent is to, if that does come to fruition, would be to move the baseball fields to that area. We've had Nick come up with a rough sketch of how we could do that, and I know that he talked to you or somebody at JYL about that, as far as just what types of fields we would look to see. I think we have, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 baseball fields and a softball field. Is that right?
Yeah, one's 300, 275, and 225, I think is where we landed with the sizes.
Okay.
And it'd be like a kind of like a tri-wheel. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so obviously our intent is to have better baseball facility, but not at this location. We just don't really have the room for that currently.
Okay.
Not without impacting some other part of the golf course. So it's not a done deal, obviously. We're waiting to see where that all pans out. So we're just in the planning stages at this point.
For sure. Yeah, I just had to ask because I know we had conversations about it, and I didn't feel we were turning away from the fields, but obviously I didn't see any in the design, so I wanted to make sure that I asked.
Absolutely. Sure. Good question. Nick?
And then maybe before there's any other questions, Morgan's going to run through some images that kind of explain and give some ideas of exactly what some of the concepts are.
So these are
Am I
concept
still sharing?
splash pad and the playground. Just some different ideas on furnishings that can be included in each one, and that's what we got there. Yeah, this is some examples of the natural play area that's adjacent to the playground. Just some different kind of natural features that kids can climb on and build with. And it can be a pretty low cost implementation depending on how much is actually already existing on the site or can be pulled from elsewhere on the site. So
it also makes a lot of sense with that pine forest that's already there. So you can kind of see that's the kind of setting a lot of these are in.
These are examples of the grass terraces off of the big lawn area on the west side and the landscape play berms, which they can have the tunnels and the slides included in them or not. I mean, kids like rolling down hills, so there's just kind of different levels of how advanced those can be as well.
And one other note on these is they can be synthetic or just regular turf. But the thing with these is depending on what they are, they can also be used by, some of these new fitness groups that like to go out and do cardio and run up and down hills and use these types of things for exercise. So they could be used for, all different levels of age levels from kids up to adults wanting to train. So just depending on how these are formed, they could be a really, really usable thing for all ages.
Mm-hmm. Here's some examples of a dog park with a shelter shown in the background of the top left. It's pretty simple, just a nice, comfortable space to hang out, and a raised bed community garden.
And we've also kind of talked through with Scott and Matthews the idea of whether it's mulch or whether it's turf. We've seen those in both situations, so but these are kind of an idea for either or.
And the image on the top right is kind of reminiscent of the multi-use fitness pavilion that we're thinking of. It's an indoor-outdoor space that kind of connects just an indoor gym feel with an outdoor like fitness class feel, I guess. So pretty versatile. Moving around, we've got the examples of the bocce court, just hanging out, playing games, having a picnic. Some festival or farmers market space. And down here, just different examples of kind of classes or programs that can happen in this space as well.
We could also see this farmer's market happening in the pervious area. So, you know, it could be a pop-up farmer's market, just like in the picture. So were there any more questions from the first concept before we move to the second?
I have a question with the, go ahead. The overhead, the walkway, it showed that there was an overhead walkway or raised pedestrian crossway. What would that look like? I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Morgan, sorry.
just describe that a little bit more.
Yeah, that would only, it wouldn't be raised very far up, but it's a clear kind of notification to drivers that there could be people walking by. It'll be not covered, but it just kind of slows people down driving through there and makes it a safer crossing for people walking.
Okay, thanks.
It's kind of like what you'd see in a downtown, just a little raised to slow down traffic.
I have a question on Plan 1. In the past, we've had at least 2 or more shelters that groups use a fair amount for picnics. Is just this one picnic area the only shelter that would be that kind of use in Plan 1?
So there'd
That's
be
right.
one here, and then I think, Morgan, we were keeping the existing pavilions on the other side as well, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, in both plans, we definitely want to keep both those pavilions. They just kind of have that unique architecture you don't see everywhere, and they're in good condition.
Okay, good.
If there's not any other questions, I'll move on to the second concept. If everybody's okay with that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
And Nick, before you start this, Matthew, if somebody does want to talk, I'm just going to keep everybody muted. If you want to talk, just unmute yourself and say you want to, to speak. Otherwise, we're getting that little nasty feedback stuff.
Hey, Matthew, one other thing to note is that if somebody's got YouTube pulled up and that's also playing in close proximity, you'll get that echoey back and forth because you've
Good
got
point.
both on. So,
Good point.
because I was looking at it, but I've got mine muted.
Yep, very good. Thanks.
Okay, so moving into the second concept, the idea for the space where the ball fields are right now was to see how we could join together fitness into kind of more of an open amphitheater like green. So, you know, it wouldn't take the place of what's going on downtown, but it would kind of have a different feel, more of like a workout green. So kind of starting from the parking lot, you come into a plaza and you could pick which way you wanted to go. There's a natural kind of path that goes around the top edge that surrounds the whole area, which could be really nice for walkers to kind of be able to walk through and around and create a link back into the Greenway Trail. But also it creates this nice little circuit. So if you didn't want to get involved with all the activity that could be happening down here, it's also nice to kind of walk on the periphery and see what's going on. So I feel like that'd be something that would be very important to the park walking. But as well, you can go straight up and we'd have this idea of a training stair, which I'll show more pictures of later. You know, everyone from small soccer teams to these new fitness classes that do all these crazy cardio things want some type of stair to run up or some type of turf training hill to roll a tire up or just whatever. So this could be real conducive to those groups that are out there that are wanting to do this type of kind of physical training. I kind of call it kind of military training that's kind of catching on with a lot of groups. So we wanted to leave a space that was, you know, kind of versatile to everyone. I mean, I could see people doing yoga on the lawn, kind of coming back around the lawn. We want to kind of create circuits where people can walk through and connect to different spaces. This exercise wall would kind of bench into the hillside, and I'll show a picture of that later. It's basically just a concrete wall that comes up and has all sorts of different kind of punching bags and fitness equipment on it. But it also could kind of be used as a stage if there's a yoga event or some type of, you know, exercise group class that could go on out here. So it could be real versatile for a lot of different things. Even if you wanted to have a larger concert than you have right now at Jamestown, in downtown Jamestown. Kind of moving over to the second half of the site, there's this concept and this idea of outdoor gyms. I'll show a picture a little bit later. It's basically any type of fitness equipment you could think of where you can change the resistance and monitor your heart rate, any of it, in this one conglomerate where everyone can come work out together. And the idea is that you have different pieces of equipment for different levels of fitness. And they found through some of the continuing education I've been doing lately that if you provide all sorts of different types of equipment, you can really reach most of the population, and different skill sets do like to exercise together. So this could be a real draw to the park. As well, moving on down, we'd want to have a restroom / shelter / control room. No splash pad is going to come without a control room with maintenance. It's basically just like a pool room. So you have to have that along with the splash pad as well as with restrooms. And if you're going to have kids, you want restrooms close as well. So the idea that you have this splash pad area as well as with all these native plantings and different things. So we're trying to do different plantings to divide these into different spaces, but it really kind of comes out into one whole space you can see across and becomes open here, and you start to enclose it out here. Then also adding a smaller training green if there's some types of other things people would want to do, which could be turf or synthetic. So kind of moving along the trail connection over to the second side of the park. This would be more of the passive side where you come have your picnics or family gatherings or church reunions or things like that. You know, we had the idea of why not move the volleyball court over here where all the shelters are, add another shelter, and this really becomes a nice little gathering area, kind of courtyard for people to be and gather and watch volleyball and have a family event. Of course, we'd want to renovate the restrooms. Scott's told us that, you know, it's about time for that. Keeping the other shelters and then coming back around, we really couldn't find a better spot for the dog park. I mean, we already have it's partially fenced here. It has its own parking right up close. And that's one thing that we've seen with dog parks is people want to drive up and park. You know, this is very ADA accessible. Come and let their dogs out and then get back in their car. So, and then this is kind of a louder use if you're wanting to be in the park and do other things away from this. This is kind of tucked into its own park with some vegetation dividing it from some of the other uses. So we really felt this was the best place for that to happen. Then kind of coming back into the park, we wanted to add some more paths, work on how we can get an ADA connection up from this parking space to the top of the park here. There are some grade issues that we'd want to try to ramp up so that this parking could be used to bring people in as well, of all abilities. And then coming back up where the existing playground is, we've heard the comments that the playground's probably done. So, and one of the biggest things that are happening right now with play is inclusive playgrounds, which means, you know, we want to provide a playground for all ages. So this smaller area could be for tots, and then this would be from probably, I think tots is 2 to 5, and then from 5 on up to 12 on this side. And the idea of inclusive play is inclusive play for all abilities, as well as not just physical, but cognitive. So, you know, this could be a really vibrant playground for the community that meets the needs of lots of different children. So that's kind of the way playgrounds have been moving, and these can become really good spaces for people together. And then moving the cornhole kind of more closer in to a shelter. So the idea that, hey, I rent this shelter, I'm gonna come play cornhole. And we feel that that might be the reason why these haven't got used as much. If we can kind of tuck them back in with some of the other uses, it's real easy to kind of make it part of some type of event that's happening with that shelter. We'd want to keep the basketball and just continue to add other shelters out here. You know, I could see somebody renting this and they have a basketball tournament and people sit under the shelter, or, you know, family reunion or church or something like that. So trying to provide space that supports, you know, kind of an expensive item that's in pretty good shape to remain. Now scrolling down, and then again, both plans, we show a connection to this greenway that comes. It was really neat seeing when we were there, them starting to try to put the bridge in that's kind of coming across the lake. So we know that's going to be a strong connection to bring people to the park.
Nick,
Yes.
I've noticed in all your plans that your existing parking lot is remaining the same place.
Yes.
Is there a reason for that? I mean,
Well, I feel like it's in a good spot and it's a fairly new parking lot and it seems to be in pretty good condition. So if we've got an asset like that, we try to work around it. I mean, it's already graded and it seems like it works well for what's there.
good.
But that, you know, just trying to be cognizant of our resources and not spend a bunch of money on pavement when we can add a new playground. So
Good. All right. Thank you.
yes. So here's an idea of, you know, some of the steps that kind of can embed inside the hill for exercise, as well as a lot of sports teams like to train on a actual synthetic turf hillside. So that would kind of be into the side of the hill there. And then this is the idea of the exercise wall. So you can provide different types of training that can be attached to this wall that people can come do. And it just, I mean, if we decided to go with an idea like that, we'd want to kind of go to the community, some of the people who do lots of exercise, and see what would be wanted there. But the sky's the limit with something like this. And then also you can see this kind of whole open training area. So you can do things that are, you know, less of the exercise equipment with monkey rings, and then more organic things that are kind of like Ninja Warrior things. But then you can also bring in the traditional equipment and different types of things. So it's the idea of providing that variety that people could come do, which makes a real vibrant space. Here's kind of another picture of outdoor exercise equipment. Possibly what you could do inside the splash pad. And I will say with splash pads, the more things that we do up out of the ground and the less fountains we use, the more expensive. So it's just, this is the idea, but we can cater that to whatever the budget ends up being. And then this is just an example of the architecture of how kind of an all-in-one building could look. And then some ideas for how we could do some type of artwork or entryway feature here in the plaza. I mean, that could be the metal or trees. So, you know, something that invites people into this space we're trying to create. Were there any questions on the second concept?
Yeah, I've got one, Nick. As far as the splash pads are concerned, how does it work with the water? Is any part of it recirculated, or is it just running water, or how does that work? I hate to sound ignorant, but I don't have a clue.
Well, I'll give you the rundown on that. So think of a splash pad just like a pool. So it is all recirculating system that is chlorinated. And that system goes into a huge tank that's in the ground. So it gets circulated into there and then treated in the pump house, just like you would with a regular pool. But the caveat is you do have to have a sewer connection, because that does have to be recirculated and kind of overturned every so often, just because you have people things in there.
Sure.
To be blunt about it.
Got
So, yeah, it's basically just like a pool that has the water underground, and then everybody plays on the surface.
Gotcha.
Did that answer your question?
Oh yeah, perfectly. Thank you.
And there are some things that we're doing with that splash pad that there's a lot of different health department requirements, and they do regulate that. So there's some things that kind of come in with that, how we've situated the bathroom a certain distance away, and it does. Different municipalities require you to fence it or not. So it's kind of a county to county thing when we start talking about what to do for the splash pad that's required.
One other thing comes to mind, from a liability standpoint, what have other towns and municipalities done as it relates to things like this, or any, besides the obvious skin knee, or, somebody falls off the monkey bars? Is there any mechanism in place that helps protect against potential liability issues with this type of advanced park
I
equipment?
know a lot of places will actually man a splash pad. So you actually have to get a wristband to be in there and kind of check in and check out, and somebody is always there. Now, as far as I've not gotten into the legalities with the paperwork of how they, write up for liability and for insurance, which I
Sure.
could get you in contact with others. But I know a lot of that is they have specific hours and rules, just like a pool, but they also have kind of a gated access to open and close it is a big part of the liability concern there. So,
Got it. Okay. That just litigious nature of where we are now. I just
oh,
kind of curious.
I completely understand that. I guess this is what am I trying to say? The less
Lesser the
hazardous version of a pool. This is where
Gotcha.
pools are going. So.
Gotcha.
Nick, do you guys have a preference to one or two? Which one fits better the area that we have available?
I honestly like both of them. It's just trying to figure out which activities, and that's one thing that I would ask to the group is, to give these a look and kind of tell us, which activities do you think would be the best for Jamestown? I mean, you all live there and kind of have a pulse for what people would do. We're just kind of responding to what we see on site, and we've kind of fit things to topography and how that works. But we definitely look to your group and, of course, Matthew and Scott to kind of tell us, hey, what items out of each of these would work the best for us. But I'm kind of partial to lots of things in both of them. Probably my favorite thing would be the indoor-outdoor pavilion. I could just see that being roll-up doors, having classes there, and maybe if it faced that green, it just have a potential for just lots and lots of things that could happen there that could be very versatile. So that's probably would be my favorite part of both the plans.
I would be interested in knowing what the cost differential is between the two, and also what the liability cost differential would be.
I would have no idea on liability costs because we never get into that. That's more of a governmental, but just from first flush, the ones that are going to have the more buildings and more play structures, I'd probably say number one would be more expensive, just because it has more involved structures, but as well as it's got 2 playgrounds. So I would say one would be the more expensive of the 2.
And Nick, one of the things that we were gonna, take away from this evening is we don't have to settle on one or the other. You can take components from each and mix and match, and you guys can meld it into one final plan.
Most definitely. I think those make the best plans.
I personally like the second one because, I actually like both of them, but the feature of the basketball court on the second one, because I know that is well utilized in our current park. I could be wrong, but I like that they both have splash pads and dog parks. I know that those were both high on the list, but I also know the basketball court is well used, and obviously the playground with the shelters. But that's my 2 cents.
I'm gonna let Scott
Thank you.
jump in and tell you about the basketball courts. He can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, the basketball courts are probably one of the most used out there features of that park, and there's no doubt that, and just the walking access to the walking trail. We get a lot of dog walkers and people exercising that just park and hit the greenway. There's always a constant flow of traffic in that lot. So I think anything with the exercising and the walking trails, of course, the basketball, like I said, is super popular. All those features will be key.
Anybody else have some feedback for the group?
It looks like the maintenance load will get a lot larger for Scott now, especially with the splash pads.
Dean, did you say that you felt like it was going to be, say that again, it kind of cut out on us a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, this will all be thought through, but I'm just saying, especially with the addition of the splash pads, it looks like the maintenance will be a lot heavier load now for the maintenance man.
It's a good point. I know Splash Pad got high marks on the survey, and I think the folks from McAdams will probably tell you that they get really high marks everywhere that they do these types of surveys. It's a lot for us to bite off at this point. It does require, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, it does require a full-time attendant, and it requires somebody to test those the water on a daily basis, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and yeah, it for the legality part of it is best to have a full-time attendant, have a staff member there, but then kind of from a maintenance, you can either, the companies that do these splash pads will train the maintenance people on how to do these things, but we have also seen communities actually contract that out to a pool contractor to take care of that maintenance. So it's an either or, but it does require maintenance, and that's a good comment to realize that it does come with a lot more maintenance than is happening out there right now.
Any other feedback about the amenities that are being shown?
It's really great to see the number of items to get the kids involved in Jamestown. There's a lot for adults. There are some things, Jamestown Youth League for younger middle-aged children, but this will bring in even the smaller ones and have more of a draw for them. So good work. Glad to see all of this.
Thanks, Doug.
And we definitely felt that it was important to get kids involved because we kind of all know how the communities are evolving, but kind of seeing that that there's an older population, and we realize older populations want their grandkids there, so they need a place to take them.
Nick, what are the uses for the neighborhood gardens in the off season? That seems like a lot of space devoted just to something that's very seasonal.
Yeah, in the off season, you can use those. You can actually gardens do need an off season, so you could probably compost them. But there are some winter things that you can grow there if people wanted to do kale or potatoes or things like that. But yeah, there would be an off season with that, unless we wanted to do kind of some winter varieties of things there. But that is a good point, that's a space that's might not be used in the off season.
I've got one more question, and this is just never occurred to me to ask. What is the acreage of this entire area? Any idea? If you don't, it's fine.
We've never taken a boundary of it. We've gotten the acreage of like the whole golf course. Let me see. Let me jump into something real quick.
Yeah,
Actually,
I don't want to derail.
Somewhere.
I don't want to derail you. It was just something popped in my head, and I was like kind of curious about it.
We've got it somewhere. I can get it for you.
That's fine. That's fine. No worries.
This is Laura with McAdams. If my memory is serving me, it's between 7 and 8 acres. And Nick, if you want to keep moving along with the presentation, I can see if I can find that for us.
I think we've got it on the inventory analysis of the parks. We've got an acreage on there. That's in fine. The master plan.
Again, I don't want to derail you. I just thinking about something.
And that's one good comment is, we feel like we're getting a lot of bang for the buck, but also if you did take some of these elements out and we did phase it out or find a budget that we could do, that's why we're looking to you all is to tell us what's the most important thing that needs to happen here so that when we start recrafting something that we can go look for a Partif grant for to meet a certain budget, we can make sure those things are there, and we can always, if there's something like say the splash pad, it's just too much to bite off. We can leave that blank in this one and then just leave the space for it. So we're kind of looking to you all for guidance to kind of help us get a plan that we'll see built is to put it blunt.
And I just did it very quickly in GIS, very rough. It's around 10 acres.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Jared with JYL again here, guys. Hey, real quick, Matthew, you had mentioned possibly a separate piece of land or something along that line to possibly, do some baseball fields at. When will a decision be made on that? Also, where is that plot of land? Obviously, the future of JYL is kind of dependent on baseball fields. So obviously, that's something kind of important to me. Hopefully, the community as well. So those are some questions I would like answered as well, please.
Sure. So I don't know the answer to that. That's the easiest solution. There's a lot of contentious feelings around the development of the Johnson property, no relation. It would be approximately at the corner of Guilford College and Mackey Road. And Nick, I don't know if you have access to your sketch. You can probably.
Yeah, I'd be happy to throw that up if you want.
Yeah. So we don't know if that will come to fruition or not. That depends on a lot of different factors. But there's the general layout. The subdivision just to the north there, if you can just put your hand on that, that's Jordan Creek, just to give you a little bit of a reference off of Mackey Road. And just kind of taking their road network out of CAD. Nick came up with a baseball, sort of the triplex here, showing the three different fields. They would utilize, they would build all of this for us turnkey, and hand that over to the town for continued maintenance in the future. But they would have their own amenity just over it would be the southeast of the parking lot, on an adjacent piece of property where they would have like a neighborhood pool and that kind of stuff over there. So they would utilize both the parking lot for, and so we don't have a sea of asphalt, for both the events at the baseball fields as well as their own internal amenities. We've talked about having a small playground out just to the left, sort of in the open areas around the south of the baseball fields there. There's just a number of things that we can do out there. This would be something that, again, that they would build for us to our specs and then turn it over to us for maintenance ongoing. I couldn't answer you to see when that's gonna happen though.
Okay, so it sounds like right now it's kind of up in the air, and as of this point, we will be not having baseball fields unless something moves forward with this design and this location.
Well, here's the thing: the baseball fields that we have are still there.
Yeah.
Until such time that we would be able to most likely get a grant to help us develop that property, or get a number of grants to help us develop the property where the baseball fields are now. So this certainly won't happen overnight. The best plan would be that these would be open in conjunction with, or in a similar time frame as we decide to move forward with some sort of plan on the other baseball fields. It just takes a tremendous amount of time to get all that money together, and all that timing is, we didn't know that the coronavirus thing was going to happen. So,
yep, sure.
Who knows what next year will bring, but we're going to try.
Okay. Yep. I just need to know. Thank you so much for the.
Sure, absolutely.
So Matt, just to clarify though, I mean, everything we're talking about, including this, we're talking a span of years. This is not
absolutely, yeah.
There's nothing that's going to happen quickly.
Nothing that could happen quickly. It's going to move
right.
Literally at the speed of government.
Exactly.
We would like to get grant money to do this. Other project, if Nick will go back to his original screen there, taking the different components that you've seen in these two plans and melding them into one. Just applying for the grant takes a tremendous amount of time and effort on the part of staff. We may not be successful in the first round. It may take additional rounds. It may take phasing to get us to get to the end of the concept, if you will. Wren Miller Park was an example that it was fairly small park. There's not a lot of major components, and so it fit very nicely into the Part F grant funding process. We've gotten Part F grant funds in the past, so that may knock us down a little bit of a notch. It's been a few years, but they try to be equitable by spreading that all throughout the state. So I wouldn't necessarily rely solely upon grant funding, but there may be some discussions on how we fund this going forward once we get the plans done. Well, part of Nick and Laura's job will be to come up with a list of costs that will go along with this, and that'll help us a little bit more as we talk about capital improvements program, our CIP, with council going forward. This is probably going to be, at the minimum, probably a 3 to 5 year window for us to work on getting some funding for this at minimum.
Thanks, Matt.
Sure.
Matthew,
are there parts and pieces that people would say that they just don't like, they don't want as a part of the program? I just want to make sure that there are things that they need to take out, that they have direction on that.
Matthew, is there some way that we can keep these or refer to these sketches?
Matthew, I can email them to you, and they all actually print out at 11 by 17. So
I'd be happy to. I've emailed them out. Did you get a copy of them in the emails?
I did.
Okay.
Jim, if you didn't get them, let me know, and we'll get you another set emailed out. But if you want to think about them a little bit, and we can set another date and another meeting, here in a couple weeks or so, just to get some additional feedback. I know you're just getting this for the first time. If it were me, I would want to know, the priorities for things you need to get rid of, and then things that you definitely want to keep. And if there are some, wishy-washy things in the middle, we can work on that.
Okay.
But those are our goals right now, is to figure out what they want to put in what elements they want in the final plan.
One thing I would throw out just as a personal concern, while I like the splash pad, I have some reservations about not so much the maintenance as it is, being able to man it and maintain it from that perspective. I don't know. I mean, again, we're talking years in the future, but it's on the surface right now. I don't know that we're going to have the appetite for that or not. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? That's just me speaking off the top of my head.
I don't
agree. And I will say, and this is a higher liability probably, I think it's the town of Stallings has a splash pad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody mans it. They just leave it open, and they have the button that you pop the water and it comes on, and then you can't pop it anymore after 8 o'clock. The water won't come back on, and they manage it that way. So that's a little bit higher liability, but that's been done too. So
yeah, that makes me more nervous.
Yeah, I figured it might.
I like features of both concepts and would like to maybe see some blending. But if I had to choose between one or the other, I'd definitely go with 2, only because that has the basketball court and more shelter, which we know are features that are currently used heavily.
And I really like the layout of the dog park area. I think that entire area is that fits.
So kind of what we're hearing from some of the discussion, and I won't cut off the discussion. I just want to kind of make sure we're hearing you all guys and gals correctly. It seems like the dog park is in a good spot, and it seems like there's a little bit of trepidation with the splash pad as far as legalities go. And it seems like the basketball and shelters should stay, because those are some of the most used things to kind of be a building block for the next rendition of the plan.
I agree with that. I think the most important, I prefer the number 2 concept, just because it is still utilizes some of the current things that we have that are currently being used, but also incorporates some new stuff, and I like the trail around. And as far as the splash pad, I mean, that's not a high priority for me, but I like the fact that there's additional shelters. And I also really like the inclusive playground for multiple age children. And I mean, I don't know if that also includes handicap children as well, but I like that the sketch on concept plan number 2, I guess.
And inclusive play definitely includes children in wheelchairs, because you would want to have a surface that's not mulch. It'd be kind of like a play surface, kind of like what they do tracks in right now to get a similar.
Nick, not to dwell on it, but the seasonality of the neighborhood gardens and the seasonality of the splash pads, those two particular things don't seem to cover much more than the summer months. I like the second one because it's more useful for the entire year, especially with the basketball court up there.
That's a good call out.
So would it be safe to say, it seems like consensus from what everyone we're hearing from is, let's move away from the splash pad on the concept sketch for now?
Yes.
Agree.
Okay.
And Nick, I'm going to jump in and say that I really like the idea of the fitness program pavilion with its inside outside. And I told you that before, the inside outside type concept where you can roll the doors up if the weather's nice or roll the doors down if the weather's not. I think that's something that we've heard a lot of people say to us, is that especially for seniors, they'd like to have a place that they could go to do some fitness activities. And I think that takes advantage of both the inside outside spaces very well.
Roll the doors down and you can use it all winter.
Nick and Matt, I think you're right, in terms of reaching out to some other people and see what they think. Knowing our grandchildren the way I do, nothing will be more important to them than the splash pads. And they won't be limited to 3 months. Youngsters like cold water for whatever reason, or they're not threatened by it. But having said that, they're not Jamestown taxpayers, they're High Point. So maybe we don't care so much about that.
And we have seen some ranges from where a splash pad will open late May and go to early September.
And what we can do, since I just want you guys to digest this a little bit, we can set another meeting for a couple of weeks from now and do a little bit of shorter meeting. In the meantime, if you want to share this with your friends and neighbors and just kind of get their feedback, see what you think. I mean, we have you guys as a committee to give feedback, to us and to the consultants so that we can come up with a final plan, and we'll present that final plan to council. We're on a time frame to try to get that done by the end of June, to get that into the June council meeting. So it'll have to be sort of wrapped up by the first week or so of June so that they can get it together. That being said, would everybody be okay for maybe somewhere around like May 15th or something to do a quick call just to give a little bit more feedback?
I'll make the time.
Yes.
With me.
Okay. Nick, does that work for your time frame?
Yeah. If we can get that feedback the 15th, we can turn that around into a concept, and then we'd probably want, I'd probably want to have approval on the concept if we could have something the first week of June to say, yeah, this is good. And then we can get a final rendering and, some costing done too, because I know that's going to be part of it.
I know that what I'd like to do is bring the final plan, not just this, the concept, but like the final packet, to council. And Katie will have to have that by around the first week of June. So I want to give you enough time. So if we can settle on the concept plan by mid-May, hopefully that can get you enough time to get the rest of the writing, the documents done, and everything sort of sewed up in a neat little package so we can present it to council in June.
Yeah, I think we can do that. And then because we've got most of the writings finished. It's just the little writing pieces that go along with this plan. So
Okay. That sounds good. Any other comments or questions? I want to be respectful of everybody's time. It's almost 5, but any other comments or questions?
I appreciate all the effort that's gone into this. There's a lot of good detail here.
this has definitely been a fun one to think about, to let us expand our minds and think of something else other than what's going on. So hopefully we've given you all a little respite of something fun. So
No complaints.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think you guys have done a fantastic job in incorporating lots of different things in there too. I just appreciate what you guys have done. I think you've done a great job.
thank y'all very much. Definitely appreciate it.
Okay, well, if there are any other final comments, say them now. Otherwise, we'll wait another 30 seconds or so. Anybody else?
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, well, I'm going to kick us all out of the meeting, but I hope you have a good afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon. I'll get another email out to you.
Thank you all so much.
Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.